You're listening to the award-winning podcast from Rutgers Law School, The Power of Attorney. I'm your host and Dean of the Law School, Joanna Bond. I'm joined today by Rutgers University Camden Chancellor, Dr. Antonio Tillis. He has served as Chancellor since July 2021. Chancellor Tillis is an internationally known scholar who has presented his work at universities and academic conferences around the world. He has decades of higher education experience that guide his commitment to elevating research output, student success, civic engagement, and internationalism. Rutgers Camden is one of the locations of our law school. Chancellor Tillis, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your origin story, going all the way back to Memphis.
Well, thank you, first of all, Dean Bond, for having me. And going all the way back to Memphis is the origin story because that's where it all began. Born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, a city that I absolutely love because of my city's richness in culture, history, and also resilience. Grew up in a working class family, was surrounded by people who believed in the power of education and the power also of community. And I say that being a first generation college educated person that my family really saw, as did my teachers, that my future had higher education in it. And so they kind of lobbied around me, made sure that I had things that I needed, forbade me to get a job after school, which I fought because it's not like we didn't need the money. But I was told time and time again, my job was to study and to make sure that I got a scholarship. And so that's what I did. And my grandfather in particular was a guiding force in my life. You know, Daddy, as we all called him, even though he was our grandfather, we all called him Daddy, was hardworking, coming from Mississippi. I'm from Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee roots. So that whole tri-state area that's situated near the Mississippi Delta, that formed me. And also, my grandfather and my great-grandfather, father, mother, they all instilled in me a deep respect for learning and also a deep respect, I would say, for justice, which also shaped my early thoughts about what I wanted to be in life.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue to my next question, which relates to a previous interview in which you said that your plan was actually to go to law school. So I want to ask you a little bit about that. You and your grandfather watched Perry Mason, and you were captivated by his rhetoric in the courtroom. So what was the turning point for you when you were an undergraduate at Vanderbilt?
Yeah, so you're bringing back some great memories of my grandfather and I sitting around that little bitty television that was black and white back then. I guess I'm telling my age. Watching Perry Mason, and I was fascinated by the way in which he captivated the jury and the audience, and his the language and the power of persuasive language, and also this notion about seeking justice. So since then, as we say in the South, since knee high to a duck, the only thing I thought I wanted to be was a lawyer. But I thought I wanted to twist it with some corporate international. So got to Vanderbilt, majored in Spanish with English in order to prepare for law school. And what really did it was, I didn't get into the law school of choice, but I had a love for Spanish, a love for languages and literature and cultural studies. So I thought, okay, I'll work, because that's what happened. I went and worked in corporate for a while and then got to Washington, D.C. via corporate opportunity and started school at Howard University, continuing the Spanish and studying literature of the Civil War, fell in love. And after that, actually never thought about law school after that.
Understandable.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, so let me ask you, what actually brought you to Rutgers Camden then? What was your journey from Howard to Rutgers?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because I left Howard and then went to graduate school at the University of Columbia to get a PhD, University of Missouri, Columbia, that is, in order to get a PhD in Romance Languages and Literatures. At that time, it was the university that had that doctoral program that interested me because of its bend on Afro-Latin American studies. And so I went there, then got the first job after graduating at Purdue University, where I was tenured as an associate professor, left Purdue, and then went to Dartmouth College to give leadership to Dartmouth College's African and African American Studies program. From there, had two deanships before landing here, a deanship at the College of Charleston, South Carolina, and then probably one of my most enjoyable deanships was at the University of Houston. And from there, the president, chancellor of the system, tapped me out to go give leadership to the University of Houston downtown as its interim president to basically shepherd that campus through the pandemic. And from there, I landed here at Rutgers University in Camden.
Fantastic. Well, we're so glad that you did land here. That's wonderful. And I really appreciate knowing about the importance of education in your early upbringing. I think that can be such a motivator, and clearly it has led you down a really compelling path. So I'm so glad to hear about that. Let me ask you about your personal journey, especially as a first generation student. How did that inform your commitment to student success and equity? I know I've heard you talk a lot about student success, and it's one of those values that we share. So I'm curious about whether your experiences as a student really informed that.
You are so absolutely right, Dean Bond, and thank you for that question, because, the only thing that we have in these types of roles is the power of our story. And it is important that our students and members of the community, K through 12, as well as those that are matriculating at Rutgers Camden and with our community partnerships with community colleges and county colleges, that they understand that. And they understand that a lot of it is fueled by my undergraduate experience in graduating from being first gen, not knowing, couldn't call home to say, should I drop this course because I'm taking 21 hours? Knowing that it was just too much for me to take on as an undergraduate student. And then that type of information was not readily available. So, many first gens, we meander through without knowing what to ask and knowing to whom we should ask. And so as a result of that, that really guides what I do in working with our professionals in student success and equity, making sure that every student has the opportunity to understand how to formulate the right question, and then to whom should that question go relative to their success. I never want a student to say what I said when I graduated from Vanderbilt, I wish I had known. Meaning that I wish I had known about opportunities that were available. I wish I had known how to manage this undergraduate career differently, and the like. So, for me, it is it's a reverse engineering of that question that really helps me to work with professional colleagues here to make sure that we do what we say we're going to do, and that is support our students in this wraparound fashion.
Absolutely. No, it's such a complex world to navigate, especially as a first gen student. So I think that all of that orientation towards providing support to our students makes a lot of sense to me, really resonates. Okay, now for a fun question. What's the best part of your job?
Well, you know what? That's actually an easy question, Dr. Dean Bond. The students. Every day I'm inspired by our students. I'm inspired by our students' resilience, by their creativity, by their intellect, by their grit, by their drive, seeing them succeed. And I get, we get the opportunity to see them succeed, not only in the classroom, but to see them succeed relative to community service and to see their personal growth. I would have to say that when we see them as a first-year student, and then we see them when we're shaking their hands at commencement, and we see that personal growth. We see that professional growth. And for me, that is the most rewarding part of my job.
It's absolutely gratifying. You're right. To watch that transformation in those years when our students are in school, it really is so gratifying. Okay, so the flip side of that question is, what is the biggest challenge for you as a leader of Rutgers Camden?
Yeah, I would have to say that the biggest challenge is balancing what I'm going to call innovation with tradition. In this, in this sector, we're constantly evolving to meet the needs of today's learners, and while trying to honor the legacy and the value that has traditionally defined Rutgers Camden. You are aware as I am, there's a dynamic tension between the two, but it's one that keeps us, I think, forwardly focused in the sense that we really have to think about what makes us great and what has historically made us great, and then how we build onto that to elevate it as we think about how to innovate.
Absolutely. Uh, so related to that, I'm going to ask about this year in particular. What
Yeah.
would you say is your top priority for this academic year, 2025, 2026?
Yeah, 2025, 2026 probably is going to be focusing on probably deepening student engagement and expanding interdisciplinary opportunities. We're investing in initiatives that foster collaboration across schools and disciplines in order to ensure that students graduate with what our strategic plan says is a holistic, future ready, job ready education. Similarly, our international strategy is an area of focus, as we continue to foster relationships with partner institutions across the globe to make sure that our students are not just ready to be thought leaders, statewide, locally, nationally, but also can engage internationally upon graduation.
Well, I have a follow-up question for you about that, but I'm gonna wait a moment and ask you a question about specifically about your 15 and 5 initiatives and your Year of the Arts initiatives. These are exciting initiatives that I know about, but I think our listeners would be very excited to know about.
Great. So 15 and 5. From my first year having conversations with multiple academic units, non-academic units, gathering information about Rutgers Camden, 15 and 5 was born out of those conversations. And so the thought was to launch 3 initiatives over the 5 years of my contract that would speak to what I learned. Well, fortunately for us, those 15 initiatives basically were birthed within the first 3.5 years. And so we've provided opportunities for staff, opportunities for our lecturers, opportunities for our tenure track faculty, as well as opportunities for our students in order to elevate in all of those areas. And we even, again, knowing that oftentimes our graduate students, particularly when they are, as we say, ABD, all but dissertation, that oftentimes they're teaching, there are other things that pull them away from their focusing wholly on their doctoral research, that we even instituted a grant for our doctoral students who also need that time in order to really focus on finishing whatever that last little piece is that constitutes their all but dissertation. It's been great. And the fun part about all of that is the Year of the Arts. We've had a wonderful year of bringing some amazing people to our campus, from Ranky Tanky to he who is coming on the 27th of this month. Legendary Cuban jazz trumpeter Arturo Sandoval is coming. All of that is also in celebration of Hispanic heritage. But we're also bringing an acclaimed artist, an Afro-Cuban artist, Rainier Rianes is coming. So the Year of the Arts has allowed us to really invest in bringing arts to our community. Another thing that it has done is that we set aside funding for faculty to think about innovative ways in which they can inculcate art into their curriculum. So hopefully it'll be an inculcation that will repeat. And so we've been able to give small grants to faculty who are bringing in thought leaders that have thought about art in their discipline or thought about art interdisciplinarily in their discipline. So we're excited about that.
Well, it's a wonderful initiative, I have to say, and the law school has been able to take advantage of this by thinking about the intersection of art and the law. And we had a
Yes.
guest speaker last year supported by the program, and we'll have a guest speaker this year also supported by the program. So thank you very much for that
Excellent. I like
support.
hearing that.
Yes, absolutely. And I also want to ask you about the role that you see the law school playing in advancing Rutgers Camden's strategic goals.
Yeah. The law school is actually centric to our mission. It's not just a place that we think about in a silo that is for professional education for postgraduate students who aspire to become a part of the legal world and the legal system. It not only trains future legal professionals, but the law school also serves as a hub for public service, public innovation, and interdisciplinary research. Its work in social justice and civic engagement amplifies our impact regionally and also nationally, which is a thread that is throughout our strategic plan, whether it's in looking at how we engage with our community through the pro bono clinic or even wider looking at the Innocence Project. But because the law school is situated on the campus, it gives students who may not have thought about a legal education. They have to pass through that breezeway.
Right.
So they have to physically pass through. And in so doing, they have to, in some way, engage the law school. So for our students who are interested in becoming a part of the legal world or getting a legal education, the law school is visibly there. And it's also there for students who may not know so. And the law faculty are also engaged across the university, which I think makes it so much more exciting for interdisciplinary work.
Absolutely. We have so many faculty members who are involved in interdisciplinary collaborations across campus. And I love the idea that our physical presence on campus is a reminder that law school is an option for anybody
Yes.
who is interested. So that's great. And you and I know there are a lot of wonderful cross collaborations occurring across campus. One of them is Professor J.C. Lohr's collaboration with Arts and Sciences Professor Kim Moran's forensics class, which is just one example. But you and I also know, because we both participated in the trip to South Africa, that there is another international interdisciplinary collaboration that really brings together different departments from across the campus. In exposing our students to South Africa, and in our case, related issues around justice within South Africa and the South African legal system. And you and I were both fortunate enough to participate in that trip in 2024. How do you think interdisciplinary collaboration plays a role in your vision for really academic excellence at Rutgers Camden?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dean Bond. I think that the more we break down disciplinary silos in order to focus on interdisciplinary collaboration, it's a win-win for our students. Our students are not inhabiting a disciplinary world. The world is multidisciplinary, and the more that they learn on how to engage from multiple intellectual, artistic perspectives, the better that they will be relative to job performance and just knowledge in general. It's the heartbeat of academic excellence, as you stated, relative to these types of collaborations. When students and faculty from different fields come together, they really generate amazing ideas. They challenge assumptions, but they also solve complex problems. I'll take it to a point that you mentioned relative to South Africa. When the law students having exposure to the constitutional courts of South Africa, it gives them another set of knowledge based on how we are with our judicial system in comparison to what's happening in South Africa. It's the same thing that happens with the students that go for business. I like the forensics class because I think that, we're in an age to where we see law and forensics plastered over the television through all of these series. And the more students see how to become that forensic psychologist working with a lawyer in order to solve a case, the better they realize how the education that they're getting is actually preparing them for those scenarios that they encounter on these series.
Absolutely. And legal practice involves it involves knowledge across a range of disciplines. So it's not just limited to legal knowledge. You're absolutely right. And we do sometimes think of the teaching that we do in a siloed way. And so I've really made it a point to try and break down those silos as well, and
Yeah.
and encourage interdisciplinary work. And I come from an interdisciplinary background, so it really makes sense for me. But what are your hopes for the next generation of law students and legal professionals who are graduating from Rutgers Law School? What do you hope that they will accomplish in the world?
I have quite a few statements on that. I'm going to start by saying, to really help us as a society understand the rule of law and understand what it means relative to as to why our democracy is shaped the way that it is, and how the rule of law undergirds that. And to be able to do that not only in the classroom or not only in the courtroom, but in going to a high school and talking to young people about making these dynamic situations accessible to multiple constituencies within our community. I also hope they leave not only with legal expertise, but with a deep sense of purpose. And I really think that that is what Rutgers Law gives to our law students. I want them to be advocates for justice, equality, and community, leaders who use their skills to make meaningful change for the common and the public good. And I think that that is what many of our alumni are doing as they matriculate into their profession as legal professionals.
I certainly see that when I go out and speak with our alumni. They are leaders within their communities. They are leaders in the bar associations. We are really developing leadership capacity within our law students, and not surprisingly, they go on to hold public service positions, to hold leadership positions, and so I'm very proud of that within our alumni community. What opportunities do you see for Rutgers Camden to deepen its partnerships with the Camden community and beyond?
Yes. This institution has a long history of community engaged scholarship and community engaged partnerships. So I'm hopeful that we can build on those partnerships that we have, and also think, what are the partnerships that we need that do not exist, that can really assist our students as far as experiential learning opportunities are concerned. And I know with the law school is looking at, where can our students be placed? What are the possibilities of our students working with some of our alumni attorneys in order to get that practical experience of the day-to-day of what it means, of what it looks like to be a lawyer, but also with the multiple different strands of the law. And the practice of law, I should say, because we'd love to see our students to work with public defenders, to understand how that works, to see them in corporate entities working in the law offices or the law areas of the 76ers. And you and I have spoken about that, still trying to push that.
Excellent. I like to hear that.
But really looking at things, what's needed, and how can we build on and expand these opportunities for our students.
I think that's fantastic. And it also gives our students opportunities to try out legal practice in a lot of different areas, because many students come into law school and have no idea what kind of law they want to practice, which makes sense. I didn't either. But by trying a few different practice areas, either through an externship or some kind of internship, those opportunities really create a sense for the law student of what it means to be in that area of practice. So it allows our students to make an informed choice about what kind of area of the law they want to practice in. So
correct. It's very interesting because as you are speaking, I can't help but think about the law students who have had experiences in municipal government, working in the legal office of the mayor. And many of those students say that they had no idea and that they didn't understand what practicing law looked like in municipal government. And that's straight to your point,
Right.
about exposing our students to opportunities that they may not have thought about.
It really opens a door for them. That's exciting. Well, congratulations on the recent designation by Washington Monthly as a best-in-class college. That's fantastic. Looking ahead, what do you hope your legacy will be here at Rutgers Camden?
I really hope my legacy will be one where first-generation students feel empowered, and that students who come here understand that we collectively are invested in their success. The brick and mortar, the new buildings here, new buildings there, new programs here, new programs there, all of that is a part of the job. However, the legacy for me has to be when students, when they graduate and they realize how studying abroad in South Africa or working with professors interdisciplinarily in forensics, how those experiences were just indelible to their formation and transformational relative to their educational experience, and then see how it is applicable to what they end up doing in life. That is the legacy that I want to leave here.
That's wonderful. Well, and I see you building that legacy on a daily basis. So that is really inspiring. Now, is there anything that you would like to add before we finish up?
I say sometimes tongue in cheek that, and I think you've heard me say this, that Rutgers University in Camden is the little engine that can and the little engine that is, in the sense that our university is a place. It's a place of possibility. It's a place of hope. It's a place of empowerment for students. And it's also a place where faculty members, alumni, and community partners have a voice, and we work together in order to advance this institution. And we understand too that that's the only way that we can do that. That's the only way that we can move this institution forward in order to be recognized. But we don't do it in order to be recognized by Washington Monthly or by U.S. News and World Report. It's what we owe our students. And as a result of being successful in those areas, we get a little national recognition and attention.
Right. It's always nice when it happens.
That's right.
But I agree with you. Not the reason we do what we do, but it's always nice. Well, Chancellor, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, thank you. It's been my pleasure. And thank you for all that you do for our law school.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Take care.
Take care.
The Power of Attorney is a production of Rutgers Law School. With 2 locations just minutes from New York City and Philadelphia, Rutgers Law offers the prestige and reputation of a large, nationally known university with a personal, small campus experience. Learn more by visiting us at law.rutgers.edu.